We'll start with Canberra, where it seems each day the news gets worse for the embattled federal Labor MP Craig Thompson. The Health Services Union has now added to his woes, saying it'll refer some questionable financial transactions to the police. Mr Thompson's accused of misusing a union credit card when he was in charge there. He denies it, but the furor surrounding the case is engulfing federal parliament. In a moment, political editor Chris Ullman will speak with the Leader of the House, Anthony Albanese. But first, here's how today unfolded.
This was no ordinary meeting of the National Executive of the Health Services Union.
Are there any comments that you'd like to make about the investigation into Craig Thompson?
I've got no comment at the moment, thanks very much.
Do you think Mr Thompson's been lying? What are your thoughts about the meeting today?
I don't know, we haven't had the meeting yet.
The agenda was dominated by the muddy past of the union's former National Secretary.
The HSU first became aware of the questionable financial transactions in May 2008, and as a result of an exit audit conducted following Craig Thompson's departure as National Secretary.
So the union engaged lawyers and accountants to take a deeper look.
That investigation report was provided to the National Executive in June of 2009 and established a basis for suspecting that there may have been misuse or misappropriation of union funds.
But the national spotlight on this case has pushed the union one large step further.
The National Executive has today resolved to refer the matter to the New South Wales Police and cooperate with any subsequent investigation.
The police are already looking at whether there are grounds for an investigation.
Will you hand over everything that you've got which may assist the police?
Yes.
And the opposition's appointed itself prosecutor.
He misused the union's funds to purchase airline tickets, accommodation, restaurant meals, electronic goods, liquor, artworks, running shoes and escort services, and take cash amounts totalling $101,000.
Do you believe Mr Thompson made those transactions? He denies that those were his.
Well, that's why we're conducting an investigation, and we have no results from that investigation.
Each day brings some new twist in a case which, in the Coalition's dreams, will bring down the Gillard government.
I can imagine that the government is pretty anxious about this because it's hanging on by the skin of its teeth.
And the opposition is applying maximum pressure. Its foot soldiers were working hard at the doors of Parliament.
See, it's not what Mr Thompson did, it's what Mr Thompson's covered up and what other people have decided to engage in this fairy tale. It's quite unbelievable. It's incredulous to think that someone, as I said, broke into Craig's house, stole his wallet, stole his credit card, stole his phone, knew how to get onto his phone, drove down to Sydney. The thief, whoever it was, looked a lot like Craig, must have had the calligrapher's art because he had a signature a lot like Craig, had a transaction which we won't go into, then drove back up the Central Coast, broke back into the house, put everything back where he found it, and life went on. Now, that's one story. The other story is he did it.
And what is the gravity of this situation? I mean, there is no gravity in this situation.
Every day there
are no charges, and that's exactly the position. There are allegations, there are no charges. People are allowed in this country the presumption of innocence, and that's the situation that should be here.
The Coalition withdrew all agreements allowing members to absent themselves from Parliament, which meant that the Arts Minister couldn't go to Margaret Olley's funeral.
And Tony Abbott denying Pairs for a stunt in the Parliament that he cannot win. Now, again, you can justify circumstances, but this is totally unjustifiable. And Tony Abbott is taking the wrecking ball to convention and process and orderly government. He is all opposition, and he's certainly no leader.
As the doors of Parliament opened, the opposition tried to force Craig Thompson to account.
Mr Speaker, I seek leave to move a motion to require the member for Dobell to make a statement to the House.
The member for Dobell is entitled to natural justice, the rule of law, and of course is entitled to the presumption of innocence. We should not sit here as a star chamber.
Later, mere minutes into question time, the Coalition tried to force the Prime Minister to explain a Labor Party loan covering Mr Thompson's legal bills.
Mr Speaker, we have a Prime Minister in hiding on this issue, we have a member in protection, and we have a government in paralysis.
By then, the government had had enough and pulled a stunt of its own, shutting down question time an hour early.
Sure, I ask that further questions be placed on the notice paper.
But there are many more questions to come.
Members will resume their places.